Alright people, let's search this dump and get out of here ASAP.
Fortnite is a game everyone has heard of. People hate Fortnite, people love Fortnite. Obviously, this video isn't talking about the Fortnite everyone primarily knows. Save the World. Fortnite Save the World is the original game mode for Fortnite. Save the World is a PvE zombie shooter base builder game where you could select different classes of heroes with different perks, obtain schematics that could be upgraded with different perks, and crafted to be used in game to fight against the enemies known as the Husks and the Mist Monsters. Save the World is effectively discontinued by Epic Games as of this video, as they've stopped updating it and said it was completed despite the fact that its story doesn't have a clear end. Now that we understand the basis of Save the World being a game mode for Fortnite, let's go into some detail on its mechanics. Fortnite is widely known for the mechanic of building. This mechanic is also present in Save the World. Building can be used for movement and defending objectives, which is obviously recommended. In Save the World, you'll need to craft and find your weaponry in order to defend yourself or the objective. In order to do so, you need the resources required for the schematic. If you do not have the resources required, you cannot make the weaponry. To harvest resources, you can search containers, boxes, and destroy structures in order to get what you need. Blue glow is an in-game resource that will not stay with you throughout different missions. It's typically used to give your team boosts or start the objective. Now that we somewhat understand the basic parts of the game, let's move on to what missions and quests are. Missions are the way you actively play Save the World. Missions give you a basic objective to complete, but this isn't how you really play the game. You'll need to complete quests for rewards and to progress the game. You'll get storyline quests, side quests, and event quests. Storyline quests are how you progress the game entirely, how you get to new areas. The areas you can get to are Stonewood, Plankerton, Canny Valley, and Twine Peaks. Stonewood is where you start, the lowest power level. Twine Peaks is the highest area obtainable. Side quests don't need to be completed, but upon completion typically give some sort of account resource or banner. Event quests are quests that will show up at certain times, giving you resources and heroes to be used. Your home base is also on the map where the missions are. You will store your resources in your home base and defend it from Husks when the quest is allowed. All this talk about power level and you have no clue how to increase your power level. Let's go ahead and explain that. Your power level is based on your progress throughout the game and your survivor squads. Survivors are obtained through missions, the store, and quests. You can assign them by going to the survivors page on the command tab. Putting survivors of matching personalities in the same squad will provide a power level bonus that will boost your power level by a bit. Survivor squad leaders are very important and are needed to drastically increase your power level. Let's talk about heroes and how they work now. There's a lot to say about heroes, so this might take a minute. Heroes are the characters you play as. There are 4 classes for heroes. All heroes will have 3 abilities depending on their level. I will only be going over the perks the classes will always have. Ninjas are experts in melee weapons. They have abilities that cater to moving around quickly and staying alive up close. Mantis Leap is a perk that all ninjas have, allowing you to jump in additional time. This is really good for getting where you need to without any speed boosts. Shadow Stance is another class perk ninjas have, making your character shrouded in black misty smoke on elimination. That increases damage resistance with armor and makes you move 15% faster while it's active. Soldiers specialize in the usage of ranged weapons, specifically SMGs and assault rifles. Suppressive Fire is a class perk that soldiers will have, increasing your damage by 3% for 5 stacks on one target, rewarding you for consistently shooting one target. The bonus is lost on target switch. Stay Frosty increases ranged weapon damage by 10% and weapon stability, reduction of spread, by 35% for 7 seconds after 3 eliminations. The duration can be refreshed by getting 3 more eliminations. This rewards eliminating a lot of enemies. Outlanders focus on resource harvesting and doing ability damage. They also have abilities that can help them with mobility to find more resources. AMC, Anti-Material Charge, allows you to use your heavy attack with your pickaxe to do a punch that will destroy anything in front of you, giving you the resources you would obtain if you destroyed it with your pickaxe. In the Zone is a class perk that will trigger after you hit something 5 times with your pickaxe without swapping to a weapon. It increases pickaxe damage by 25%, movement speed by 7.5%. While it's active, nearby containers will glow, allowing you to find them easily. Additionally, Outlanders can find charge fragments that will reduce the cooldown of some of their abilities. There are also purple charge fragments that will spawn a loot llama, containing materials for you and your squad to obtain by destroying it. Constructors are the builders of the group. Their purpose is to hold down the fort and focus on defenses. Constructors specialize in melee knockback, typically hammers, and have class perks that cater to doing so. Kinetic overload causes miniature energy explosions that deal a decent amount of damage, and critical melee hits increase melee impact damage by 10% for 5 seconds, which can also stack 5 times. Kinetic overload is only triggered by the opponent being knocked back and staggered. This means the more you crit the enemy, the more likely you're going to knock them down and trigger this effect. Base is an ability that all constructors have. It will be located within your traps. When placed down, all structures affected by the base will have increased damage resistance by having 60 armor. The base effect will extend 4 segments from where it's been placed. We understand the hero classes now. How do we use them? Hero loadouts are the way you'll be using all of your heroes, whether in the commander slot or in the support slot. Commander heroes are the hero you'd be playing as. You can apply a skin from Battle Royale over them. Playing as a hero gives you their commander perk, which is a stronger version of their support perk. Commander perks are typically what you want to base your loadout off of. An example would be if I'm playing as Rescue Trooper Ramirez. I would want to probably base my loadout around assault rifles and SMGs, since her commander perk heavily boosts those weapons' damage. Now we'll explore the in-game shop. The shop is where you could find resources that aren't used in missions, schematics, heroes, defenders, and more. Use the currency of gold to purchase whatever you want from the store, which gold is obtained by doing missions and quests. The shop is also where you could find non-mission loot llamas and open said loot llamas you've earned. The llamas cost V-Bucks for founders and X-ray tickets for non-founders. Found inside these loot llamas are schematics, account resources, and heroes. All this talk about schematics and I still haven't explained them? Let's go ahead and break those down. Schematics is where you'll be finding all your weapons you can craft and modify. This includes melee weapons, ranged weapons, and traps. Schematics can be leveled up using weapon XP, which will then in turn make them stronger at the cost of them needing a new ore to craft them with. This does not apply to traps. Perks can be modified on the schematic using Reperk, Perk Up, and Core Reperk. Perk Up is used to increase the rarity of the perk, making them stronger based on what the rarity is. Common is the lowest tier and Legendary is the highest. Reperk is used to change the perk of a basic perk on the schematic. This doesn't include the final perk on the schematic. Core Reperk is how you change the final perk on a schematic. This effectively would change the weapon's gimmick. I will briefly go over what founders and non-founders are now. Founders are people who originally paid for Save the World before it was marked as a premium experience incomplete. Founders can earn V-Bucks from everything that would normally give V-Bucks. Non-founders are people who bought Save the World after the premium experience change. They cannot earn any V-Bucks and instead earn X-ray tickets to exclusively be used on llamas. In short, founders are people who originally paid for Save the World. They receive the benefits of V-Bucks like they had before. Non-founders are people who bought Save the World after the update where they effectively discontinued development. I mentioned energy explosions earlier. Let's go ahead and explain that before we go ahead and talk about what happened to Save the World. There are 5 elements in Save the World: energy, fire, water, nature, and physical. Physical is considered not really an element, so it's not recommended to be used. Physical is an element husks can have, and it doesn't specifically have a weakness or a resistance. Energy is the best overall element, and enemies cannot have this element. Energy damage only does 75% damage to any elemental enemy, which is the most even ground for dealing damage. Fire element is strong against nature elementals. If the enemy is fire element, they'll deal more damage against wood structures. Nature element is strong against water elementals. If the enemy is nature element, then they will deal more damage to metal structures. And obviously, if all of that makes sense, water element is strong against fire elementals and does more damage to brick/stone structures. We probably understand the basics of Save the World. Let's go ahead and look at some things that contributed to it no longer receiving updates. Trading is a somewhat common thing in Save the World. I would not recommend trading personally because people like to scam and consider it funny when they get all your stuff for free. Trading happens a lot in lower areas and typically happens by trade boxes. These trade boxes basically just have it so that 2 people are split between sides, making it so people cannot take each other's items. Some trade boxes are rigged in someone's home base to favor them and allow them to get your items easily, while you cannot do the same. This is obviously for scamming purposes, and overall, you just should trade people. There's no real purpose in trading anyone because you can most likely just obtain whatever is needed unless it's an exclusive schematic, and then craft it and perk it for yourself. Trading and scams aren't really considered that much of a problem, but I think it did contribute to Save the World's decreasing state. The main problems was glitches and bugs. Save the World has had a lot of bugs over time, which was expected because it was considered early access the entire time. Now that it's marked as finished and a premium experience, bugs seem rather unacceptable at this point. There's still a lot of bugs in the current state of Save the World, but I'll be using old bugs as an example since they were more prominent. I personally encountered a bug that allowed Huss to entirely ignore my defenses and damage objectives through a wall. This clearly ruined the whole point of playing the game, but I found a way around it at the time. Sometimes objectives could entirely not be started, which means you would have to forfeit all quest progress that you currently had and start a new mission instead. You couldn't build in certain spots where objectives needed defending. Additionally, since you can't build inside of ramps and terrain, some objectives require too much effort than needed to defend just because there's a bit of land in the way. That one isn't entirely a bug, but sometimes, yeah, nothing was in the way. You just couldn't build where you needed to defend the objective, which made zero sense. One bug made bows entirely unusable because they wouldn't charge correctly, making the projectile just shoot directly in front of you. You couldn't hit anything with it. Duping items is a very common thing, and people still somewhat do it. And people use that to spam overpowered traps and weapons, and they would just use that to scam people as well. Those bugs mostly got fixed, and with a lot of content updates, which we'll now talk about. Save the World has received a lot of updates over the time it was introduced. It used to cost energy to sprint, and the UI was much different. All the content updates to Save the World were arguably good, minus some balance changes they decided to make sometimes. Most updates were more schematics, heroes, and quest lines to obtain said things. They even introduced events that were missions with new objectives and playstyles. Dungeons is an event game mode that requires you to crawl through a dungeon using only the weapons you find in said dungeon, and at the end you get to fight a boss. Hit the Road is also an event game mode that allows you to craft traps but no weapons, finding weapons and stopping at certain points to do mini missions basically. Save the World has had a lot of content updates and bugs, and I still love this game to this day. I wish Epic Games would continue to update the game mode so that people will actually take interest in it. This leads me to my final thoughts for this video and Save the World entirely. Save the World is an amazing game mode. I enjoy playing it and messing around with silly weapons and loadouts. Obviously it's had a bumpy road to get to where it is currently, and it's considered in a bad state now that it effectively gets no updates. As for the video, I'm sorry most of it was basically just a tutorial for Save the World. Save the World is a complex game mode in my opinion, so I really wanted to go into the detail and make sure it was understandable why I care for it so much. This is pretty much my only second time attempting to format a video something like this, and I think my first attempt was more sloppy than this. Obviously it isn't the best video explaining what happened, but I definitely tried my hardest to convey what happened towards the end. If you couldn't tell by the background gameplay, the game does get pretty difficult later on, and that definitely makes it more fun if you can handle it. I would recommend Save the World if you want a nice little game you could somewhat goof off in and have fun. If looting stuff in a game and looking like you're doing a lot of damage is your thing, totally play Save the World. I originally got Save the World to earn the V-Bucks for Battle Royale and have a fun game mode to play, which it is. Watching all the gameplay videos of Save the World really interested me, and if you think you would enjoy it, definitely go look at some gameplay. In a nutshell, love game. Game dev stop update game. Bad dev. Make love game. Bad game. Me sad.
1, 2, 3,